Hello there, and welcome to Ms.RedNebula's Planco Tips. Today I'll be talking about how to make round buildings and other features. You may have seen round and cylindrical builds and wonder how it's done. I originally saw this trick on Silverette's channel, so click the link above to check that video out too. There are some good circular pieces in the base game, but this method gives a lot more versatility. The basic trick is to start your build around a gridded building piece. I like to use the wooden post. And while you can use gridded pieces for your circular build, it's much easier to use off-the-grid pieces so you can position them more precisely. Let's start by just distributing some columns in a circle. Start with your gridded center piece and make sure we're in the same building. Place the first column against it using whatever position allows you to make sure the piece is centrally aligned. Then turn on the Advanced Move tool by pressing X and use it to move the piece into position. Next, select both the center and the column and duplicate them by either clicking the Duplicate Selection button or by using the Ctrl-D shortcut. Turn your selection 180 degrees by pressing the Z key twice. You want the duplicated centerpiece to directly overlap the original centerpiece. If it's stacking vertically, just use the Shift key to move it to the correct height. After this, you don't technically need the centerpiece anymore, but I like to keep it there in case I want to pivot more objects around this same point. There are two overlapped pieces now though, so you can delete one. Now, select both of the columns but not the center piece. You can hold down Ctrl while clicking just on the pieces you want to select, or you can hold the left mouse button and drag to select everything, and then Ctrl-click to remove just the center piece. In fact, the second method is easier, especially when you have a lot of pieces. Click Duplicate and Advanced Move, or use the shortcut Ctrl-X. Notice the Advanced Move pivot point is now directly in the center between the two columns. This is the only method to reliably get a centered pivot point. You don't need to keep Angle Snap on, but if you want to have an even distribution of pieces, it helps a lot. You can keep it at 45 degrees or you can use 30 or 15 degree increments. With it set to 45 degrees, turning twice will give you an X-shaped pattern. Now, if you select all four columns, again avoiding the centerpiece, you can use Duplicate and Advanced Move again to get a circle of 8 pieces. Of course, if you backtrack using Ctrl-Z to undo, you can use a smaller increment to distribute more columns. If I set the increment to, say, 15 degrees, the columns are now very closely spaced together, and you can begin to see where this technique allows for cylindrical buildings. To make an enclosed circular building, the technique is similar, but you'll need to make sure the pieces connect when you duplicate them. Here's an easy way to do that. Start with the center piece, and then use a long, thin, non-gridded piece like the plain 4-meter wooden pillar, in the same way as we placed our column before. Select and duplicate both pieces 180 degrees. Get rid of one of the duplicate center pieces but leave the other one. Then for this one, select both of the non-grid pieces and duplicate them, but just rotate them 15 degrees. The area where we'll build our actual building wall is between these two pieces. I'll just build it using basic shapes, but you can use any non-gridded piece. Use the pillars as guides to help match the piece corners. They'll match up about halfway across the pillar. Once you've built your initial wall piece, get rid of all of the pillars. Select the wall and the center piece and do another 180 degree duplication. Select the two walls without the centerpiece and then start duplicating them using Angle Snap to 15 degrees to form your cylinder. Of course, you can also incorporate those pillars or other designs into your wall. For the pillars, you only need to leave one, as it will be duplicated into place when you're done. One thing to note is this technique only works when pivoting on a flat plane. It will not work at an angle. If you need a tube parallel to the ground, build it upright first, then select the whole thing and use the Advanced Move tool to tilt it down. This technique can also be used for more complicated rounded shapes such as domes, spheres, and more. These shapes can require a little finagling to get right, but the basic idea is this. Start building with a thin piece again, usually a pretty short one like the 1 meter wooden pillar, only this time create the outline of the shape you want. For example, a dome can start with a vertical piece which you then duplicate, move upward, and tilt in 15-degree increments. Keep doing this until you get to a horizontal piece. Then select the shape you created and move it until it's in line with your central piece and the top horizontal piece sits about halfway through the central point. And again, select and duplicate everything, turn it 180 degrees, select everything except the center, duplicate that, and turn it 15 degrees. Since this is a more complex shape, it takes a little while to fill it all in properly, but taking the time to do this first little chunk right will mean the end result will turn out looking nicer. Delete your guiding pillars and duplicate the shape around. Now you've got a dome. And if you need a sphere, just take the whole thing, duplicate it, and flip it upside down. You'll want to overlap the vertical shapes so it doesn't appear stretched, so you'll have a little cleanup of those overlapping pieces at the end, but now you've got a great looking sphere. Another example is how I created the Normandy SR2 from my Mass Effect ride. I knew I needed half of a vaguely cigar shape. I used the same technique to create the basic shape, duplicated it to create the fully cylindrical shape, and then deleted half of it. Some coloration and tweaks later, and this is the final result. One last note. While I've created fairly simple designs here, you can design something quite complex before duplicating it. This was a piece I created for my log flume, the Winter Palace. The details are just made from icing pieces, but look really great when duplicated as a dome. And that's it. Feel free to like or comment and leave any suggestions for quick tips or tutorials you'd like to see me do. And if you want random updates from my Planet Coaster exploits, you can subscribe too. That's all for now. Bye!